So it is fundamentally important that your story relate to the people so they can build up emotion with them.
Well, I think that we use stories to make it easier for people to understand how we can help them.
When you tell story, you open two channels in front of you.
Nearly everything happens twice. It happens first in our mind, and then it happens in our reality.
This universe is made up of data, made up of information. But this information, we cannot even see a small fraction of it because we don't have a tool to be able to read it.
They have to feel that they can trust us, but we have to also show them the love that, maybe now our love is more the fact that we know we can help them.
When you start, you are going to start at zero. It is normal. Don't worry. To pass that stage.
The customer, what does the customer care about over here? They care about themselves, rightly so.
Wherever you are joining us today, we say thank you so much for taking the time to spend a few minutes with us as we talk about our regular conversation on storytelling, storytelling for business to be specific. Today, we are looking at one of the fundamental, we might call it, about storytelling. And we are looking at why do storytelling move people. Then I was reading an article just now. This is on the Harvard Business Review, and they were looking at the. Let me see how they actually put the article, and it's titled "Storytelling that drive both change." Now, the writer was saying that, of course, they were citing also another source. We say that research has shown that storytelling has a remarkable ability to connect people and inspire them to take action. Now, what that means is that there is a reason why we are continuously talking about the power of storytelling, particularly in business, is that it helps you to be able to connect to the people. Because connection is very important. It's not just enough to put our messages out there. The question is whether does it resonate with people. The story is one of the ways that make it easier for your message to resonate with people. Also because as human beings, you will know, sometimes we are very complex the way we are, the way we function as it were. So sometimes there are issues that are deeper than what you can explain in plain words. Let me give you an instance. No? Imagine you were called upon at the end of apartheid regime in South Africa to reconcile the people, to reconcile the white minority and the majority black people in South Africa who were mutilated, massacred all these years through the forces of the state. You are supposed to reconcile these people. You see, there is no way you are going to be able to succeed in it without play to the emotion of the people, of course, delicately as it were, no? Without trying to appeal to the senses and sensibility of the people, because you are talking about people who have lost their life, talking about people who have been denied justice by institution, and now you are telling them that they need to look for a way in their heart to forgive this individual, and they should continue to live in the same society. You see, data cannot simply do this. Statistics cannot simply do this. You need that element that touches the human heart, that touches on the human reasoning. Somebody said that storytelling is baked into our very DNA. That is how we function. That we function in picture, in blocks of picture. In the event that have happened, plus another event, then another event, we put them together, compare and contrast, and then it is always, this is how we continue, this is how we have always been from the ancient time, which is why if you go to different institutions or different industry in life, you continue to see that storytelling begin to continue to be very relevant in that, because there is a lot of work in development of science and technology today. One might be wondering, is storytelling still relevant? Of course, storytelling is relevant because, like one expert said, it is actually baked into our functioning as human beings. It's baked into our life. It's the way we reason as human beings in stories. So storytelling works because that is the natural functioning of the human being. We functions in story. Now, imagine, okay, this might be in different ways. Now, imagine you are a husband of in a family. You went to work. By the time you return, usually we tell story to your wife or your kids of how things have went for you in the workplace. While you are doing this, you are usually framing situation, and they will pay attention to you because of this relatability in the event that you are narrating. Because the wife that you have left at home now have had some instances, had some dealing with maybe what have happened in the house that usually is in the form of story. So when you take it away from there to maybe in the business environment, when you want to talk to people, it is important that you talk to them in the language that they can understand. Since all of us are naturally just attuned to story in the way that we function as human beings, it is natural that when you bring this element into the business environment, then it makes a lot of sense that people will pay more attention to you than just maybe blowing out statistics and data out there. So it is important. So storytelling work. It work because of this, because it is our natural functioning as human beings. So it's important that when we talk, when we communicate, we must be able to lace element of story into it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about something like emotion, like relatability, something like memorability. Because what does all this mean? It means that when you tell story, depending on who you are telling the story to, which of course I assume you already know who you are telling the story to, because it is very important that you understand who you are telling the story to. Then you tell the story in a way that it resonates with the person, so that when the person, so that the person can mimic his or herself or themselves in the case of audience now in the story that you are telling, in the instances that you are giving in your story. If you do this, then they can see themselves in their story. Then it becomes easy for them to remember what you are saying, because it helps you transport them to part of their life, to sessions in their life, to stories, blocks of stories in their life that they can connect to. Because, okay, take it or leave it, people are selfish. So they normally are not really using your story to connect to you in some sense. They are using it to connect to themselves. It has something that have happened to them. So they are using your story as building block for them to be able to recollect and connect to themselves and connect to their past, their feeling, their experiences, what have happened to them before, or what they have heard before, which now they are keeping in their memory. By you telling story, you are triggering these different emotions in them. And this helps them to be able to relate to you, because you are like them. The story that you are telling is reminding them something about themselves, which is the selfish part of the human being. But as a business person, as a marketer, somebody who want to sort of win the people to your side now, you understand that this is the way it functions. So you are actually using their advantage. I don't want to say against them, but you are using it delicately in a way that you can drag the people to your own line, because you know what makes sense to them. You know what they will laugh to. You know what will make them to reflect. You know what will make them to pay more attention, because you know who they are. This is one thing that we say quite often, that before you communicate to the people, before you talk to people, before you relate to people, you need to know who they are. Because when you know who they are, you know how to move this story in a way that you drag them to your side. Sometimes you can make them to feel bad. Sometimes you can make them to feel good. Sometimes you can make them to be neutral, because you know who they are. So the story you are telling very delicately is organizing the feeling, the emotion, the relatability in the way that the people can see themselves in you. And when they can see themselves in you, then of course they will be able to follow you and pay attention to what you are saying. So storytelling works also for this reason. When the people can see themselves in your story and relate to it, then of course they can memorize. You can have a high sense of memorability, so that they remember what you are saying. And of course, it helps also to connect at the level of emotion, because emotion is a fundamental aspect of effective storytelling. That when you tell a story and it doesn't relate to the people, it doesn't resonate with the people, it's obvious that the people will not know what you are talking about, and therefore will not be able to relate with you. So it is fundamentally important that you relate, your story relate to the people so they can build up emotion with them. What would you say is the relevance of using story in business communication? Because then we'll be talking about why does it work. Please share with us on that.
Well, I think that we use stories to make it easier for people to understand how we can help them. That's a simple explanation why we use stories, right? So I think by using stories, we help people to see what either they can't see otherwise in terms of the benefits that we can bring. But to help, I think essentially it's a shortcut for them to understand who we are, what we do, how we can help them, and they can really feel something because, unless we make them feel something, as we know, that people are not going to buy, right? No, it's not what you do that makes people buy, it's how you make them feel. And stories are the best way to make someone feel something. Whether that's joy, whether that's anger, jealousy, whatever emotion that we choose to use to move people from where they are to understanding what we do and then making that decision to buy. Stories is the fastest shortcut we have. There's many more benefits, of course.
And you are saying that whether it is good or bad, as long as you make them feel something.
Yeah.
At least to an amateur, that might be sort of difficult, challenging to understand, because people usually will say, okay, if you're talking of feeling, it should be a good feeling. If it is a bad feeling, we shouldn't even talk about it at all. We just need to be laughing all the time. Only that naturally, that is not how we are. I don't know if you have had to have that conversation with some people sometime.
No, it's true. We have to make people feel something over here. If you don't make people feel anything, then, like you say, we might as well not bother talking. And if if people don't feel anything about your brand, your products, or your services, then you might as well not exist, right? It means whatever you're doing is not working. Say whether people love my brand, I'd rather they love my brand, of course. Because good things flow from there. If they love your brand, then they'll tell their friends about it, and they want to do business with you. They will invite you to support their events and their activities. But I think, as much as we get the love through storytelling, I think that many people don't appreciate the fact that we get almost an equal amount of, is it hatred? Yes, call it that. There's equal amount of negativity. Is that a bad thing? No. I think, the worst thing that we don't want is ambivalence.
What does that mean?
People don't care. That they couldn't. It makes no difference to them. So they're just like, whatever. Do I like you? Do I not like you? I don't really care. That's what we don't want. And I think to get the love from your storytelling, I think you need to also get the people who will be so against what you're trying to do, what your story says you are, or your solution. If you haven't got the like and the dislike, I think you're going nowhere. So we have to learn to embrace both.
Is it like what the saying goes that there is no bad press? Sometimes people just people can create anything as long as they keep people talking. Is it in line with what they're talking about here?
I could say yes, but it's not really. It can be bad press over here can be really bad, right? Bad press is wrongdoing. Bad press loses trust, and once you lost trust, you're kind of in trouble, right? Whereas I think just being mentioned in the grand scheme of things, it's always a good thing. Being seen, being seen somewhere is better than being seen nowhere. Of course, you want to be seen in the right places, right? Talking to the right people with the right stories. If you are, it's not causing controversy. It's not causing controversy. If you are doing wrong, then all you're doing is shooting your brand in the foot, right? Essentially you're harming yourself. So I think it's a fine line between I want to be seen, I want to be known, but you want to be known. Some people use controversial stories over here to build a brand. Some big names use they use controversy.
In fact, I was just going to go there, mention maybe people like Donald Trump, for example, who will shoot at every direction sometimes in their speaking. And these are not even low personality. These are very high personality. And sometimes you wonder, but don't they know what they are talking about? They just shoot it out anyway. And of course, everybody is talking about them. Look at, for example, the movie that they just created in Oval Office. Because now everybody's talking about it,
It's Zelensky's real life. It's our real life, but to them, it's like a film, right?
It's a film. Now you look at that from one spectrum. Then you also look at it from also another on the long end of the other side. Or some people who say they want to be correct before they can say something. They want to be politically correct, before they can say what they have to say, because they don't want somebody to criticize them, to say, but why did you have to say that? Because sometimes you want to be correct. Because you want to be correct now, you will be correct in not saying anything, because nobody's going to accuse you now for saying nothing. But only now that you are empty, you are nothing, because you are not present at all. So I think that is that line, that fine line. If you want to say something more about that, okay. There is one end, people that are very provocative sometimes. There is the other end, people that are too afraid to say anything because of the fear of criticism. So their story are never heard. What do you say about that?
Look, I suppose you don't want to be saying nothing. Number one, right? And the controversial can be in many forms. There are people who deliberately cause offense, right? I don't think you want to be one of those. They're out there, the shock jocks, they're called on radio, right? On the internet, it's pretty similar. There are people who will spout untruths. They'll spout things just to get people's emotions up. I guess as a brand, I would always ask myself, what are they selling really? And very often, all those people are selling, those who want to be controversial, they're selling their controversial views. They're selling their, I'm contrary to everyone else. I'm not the same as everyone else, right? That's a product. Whereas we are trying to sell a service, a solution. So it means rather than just talking, we need to talk. Again, this is a mantra in all business marketing, maybe in storytelling too, right? You want to tell the right story to the right person at the right time. That way they will engage with you and want to do business with you. It's about getting all those rights, right person, right story, right time, correct. That will help us to move our business forward. So I don't think we should just talk for the sake of it. And look, there's always an argument. Is it better that people are talking about you regardless? Which is a question you're asking me over here. But I think we can be a bit more intentional, a bit more deliberate, and use our stories to help people. That way, those who love us really love us. They love our solution. They love our brand. They love our identity. They love how we do what we do. These are all things that we communicate through our stories. But that's much better than people who, they like us because we are a bit odd. They like us because we have the power to annoy some people. That I think the controversial route is normally what we see every day over here. The people who they say things, one, without thinking whether they're right or wrong. Two, without thinking about how it affects other people. Lack of empathy, right? Whereas I think we need to be considerate to those who we serve. Those who we don't serve, is perfectly fine if they dislike us. But then they're not disliking us because we are being offensive. They're disliking us because they don't agree with our way of doing things. Maybe they got another supplier. Maybe they got another, another way of looking at what we're doing. But essentially, we're not offending them. We're just doing our thing and telling our stories. And it's for them to either like it or not. If they don't like it, what can we say, right?
That's so true. It reminded me, yesterday I was speaking in an event where I was invited to speak in line with other people in an online event. So I was making reference to what I often say in storytelling exercise, okay, like what we usually will say here, that when you tell story, you open two channels in front of you. One is the people who your story are not going to resonate with. These people are going to look at you and turn the other way. They are going to walk away. And I say, this is a good thing. Because it means that you're not going to be wasting your resources on people that are not for you.
For sure.
But on the other line are people who your story are going to resonate with. They might not necessarily be very close to it, but they might even hear your story, maybe through another channel. They will say, I feel something about that. They will come to you. So I think storytelling work also for this reason is that it helps us to be able to connect to people. One thing I've also learned in line with this is that when we tell story, we actually help people to connect to themselves instead of to us always all the time. I remember, for example, I was interviewing somebody here in the podcast. The person was sharing story about her life because here the way the podcast is set up, and usually we say the first few minutes talking about the guest. I'm interested in where you are coming from, your story, your background, and all of that. So as she was explaining herself, I'm discovering myself even more. Me growing up in Esan, in Nigeria, what she was saying, even though she's not even an African, was making sense to me. And I was telling her how that story is helping me to discover myself more. So I think this is where the connection really become very strong here. So I don't know if you want to say something more about that as we move towards the emotional part of the storytelling.
I think that you're 100% right, Obehi. Again, this is the reason why we use storytelling. Through telling the stories of the people we've worked with, how we've helped them, and maybe in the journey, we want our story to make our listeners, our viewers, see themselves in the picture. Essentially, that's about them seeing themselves. Some suddenly realize that they have an issue where they didn't think they had an issue in the first place. They thought they were perfectly fine. The right story can make me realize, okay, Eny, you have a problem that maybe that can be fixed, right? Your story can help me understand the magnitude of the problem. And again, your solution obviously gives me a way out. I don't think I want to tell too many stories that leave the audience hanging, that leave the audience with the same problem that they came to us with. Say when I do my events, for example, and even when I write a blog, we want to show people a solution. Yes, yes, there's an issue. Yes, it's a problem. And yes, it can be fixed. Here's the first step. The first step could be just talking to us. That could be the first step. The first step could be go to our website. It could be come to our event. I'm saying, I think we always have to give people that way to see their pain go away, at least begin to see the journey. Even when we write books over here, I always tell my authors, I know you can put everything in a book and have a 10,000 page, 1,000 page book. You don't need a 1,000 page book. You just need 150 pages. So tell people the problem, tell them how it can be fixed, and then show them the first step. That's how a book works in my mind. You can always tell step 2 to whatever 20 in books 2, 3, 4, and 5. You don't need to get it all into one book, for example. So you can break down the client's experience, but as long as they get relief, a real solution that they can see, then they will feel, one they'll get it. They'll get the point of you telling your story, and then they also get the fact that you are the answer.
Thank you so much for that, Eny. You see, as you were talking, a thought that actually came to my mind was a conversation I was having with a friend a couple of days ago. He came to visit me, so we're talking about our project with diaspora and DMT. Okay, these are two words that they will become they will become popular in my mouth in the time to come.
Excellent.
So we were talking about a project that we want to do in Benin, talking about Igwe Festival and of course many other. So we were talking about some of the research that we need to do, and this individual, of course, is somebody that I respect a lot. We're talking a lot how we are going to be able to prove the historicity of what we were talking about, since we are going to be talking about tourism. Then at the point I was telling the person, listen, what the people are interested in is not really the facts. It's not the fact that people are interested in, is the feeling.
Yeah.
They are interested in the feeling, because particularly in this huge industry called tourism, it is not built up of facts and figure. It's built up of feeling, the experience. What do you make me feel? Now, for example, just to clarify for somebody who might be thinking, you see, the story of Romeo and Juliet, I just wrote a book about it, okay, from the point of view of tourism in my city. The story never happened. The story of Romeo and Juliet never happened.
Oh no, you ruined my dream. Yeah, okay, you ruined my dream.
Okay.
Yeah, there's two things I believe in Obehi: Romeo and Juliet, and I think dragons. They must exist, right?
But there are many stories like that. Okay, I don't want to go to the Bible, though. I tell people that maybe a lot of the character, or all the character that you are hearing of in the Bible, never really existed in real world. But of course, they exist in our mind because we create them.
Yes.
The beauty about our imagination is that anything that we can believe in, we can see it. Then I will clarify this to this individual. I will say, okay, now imagine yourself standing in front of a valley, a very dirty valley filled with potopoto. You know what in Nigeria we call potopoto, very dirty valley, I say, okay, now imagine that you are standing with somebody and you tell this person, you see this valley? I am going to build a house here, a 10-story building. And I say, at that moment that you are telling the person, is it real or not real? I say, well, it's not real. I say, okay, but what if you could believe it enough? You have the resources, you really go to work and you create it. In 10 years' time, a 10-story building will be sitting on top of that valley. I say, at that point, is it real or not real? Of course, it becomes real. Which is to say that reality and illusion, the thing that really separates them is very small. Or maybe what we call imagine and reality, the difference is really small. So that what we should be focusing on in our story is not just the facts and figure. I'm not saying let's go and lie, even though lie is something that we also need to define very properly. We need to concentrate on the feeling. How do we make the people feel? And if we go to the way stories are told now, we will see that, okay, now let me clarify it like this. If you enter a movie, you see a character that you love very well, you know how the story is going to end. Maybe the person just jumped down. Maybe the story is going to be told from when the person jumped to the time he falls. But they are not going to do it like that, because that would take just a few seconds to happen. Instead, they make you go around and do all sorts of things and all of that. Then you come to fall in love with this character. But what if you are intelligent enough to understand that person really did fall from the upstairs and die? Because you are going to see in another movie again. Are you still going to believe the fact and figure, or believe that this is just a feeling?
No, look, it's an interesting question on a deeper level, if you ask me, right? Because I think, in truth, most things, nearly everything, happens twice. Yeah, but it happens first in our mind, and then it happens in our reality.
Right? I love that.
They say if we can see it, if you can see it in your mind, then it will happen. But of course, I think I look at it to say, having the vision, it all be in your story, it gives you a path to where you want to be to delight the customer. But your imaginary or your vision is a solution that's going to make the customer, I guess, better off, right? They're going to be in a better place at the end of it. Have you created it yet? And hopefully you have. But certainly, what it would do is inspire you and motivate you to get to that point where you can look at the customer in the eye and say, right, I promised you X, here is X. Maybe today when I'm telling you what X is, it doesn't exist, right? It's only in my mind. Say tomorrow, without that vision, I can't create X. So the story can also, like you mentioned that earlier on, the story can reveal what's inside us. It can tell us what we really think and believe, right? If I say many solutions we sell are they're aspirational, they're about transformation. But we know, and I guess hopefully our customers know that we're going to go on a journey together. Again, this is a point of storytelling. And I could just say to you, right, Obehi, you want me in your podcast? Okay, here now, I'll come and talk to you. And that's it, right? Job done. Oh, I could bother to share with you the sort of podcast I've been on, sort of things I talk about, the effects it has on my friends' shows. You mean the friends it has on my clients? I'm saying that gives all those stories give us a context to work with, right? And it's impossible that it's not impossible. I think I'm having this argument with people these days. I think it is dishonest of us to ourselves, to our customers, to know better and not aim for it. As humans, if I know better, then whether I pray to God or whether I pray, I will do what I can to get towards the ideal. Sometimes we don't get to the perfect place, but at least we make progress towards the solution that helps the client. You're not going to watch everyone do something many times and not learn a single thing, right? And every time we see something done, every time we tell a story, our mind shifts. And sometimes our clients' minds shift. Well, our clients' minds have to shift as well to really begin to appreciate the issue and the fact that our solution, they can see themselves in our solution, basically. And we tell the same story 10 times, Obehi. And again, we do this every day in business. You wonder why today you talk to a person, they say to you, nah, I'm not interested. Tomorrow you come with the same, call it follow-up, right? Tomorrow you come with the same story. Suddenly the person's listening because yesterday didn't make sense to them. Today, there's someone, they've evolved. They've lived a whole day. So they are in a different place mentally and physically, so to speak, right? Now, so suddenly they're seeing things that were there yesterday, but they just didn't see it. Maybe another way to explain that concept is read a book. Pick up any book, read it, and then come back and then read it again tomorrow. You will find things tomorrow that you never saw today, but the book hasn't changed. The book's still there.
True. So true. The information have always been there. One thing I'm also beginning to realize, as we grow up more, we assume we accumulate more information. Something begin to get a little bit clearer to you. But like you said, all these things have been there all along. Now, let's take a look at technology, the one that we are using today. With the power of AI as it's continuously evolving, you could just write something to AI and say, write me a story. Maybe what you write is just a few words. The AI is going to write the story for you. This is a possibility have always been available, just that we didn't have the tool to do that. Okay, maybe that is a little bit too advanced. Actually, this is more advanced. In the air, there are a lot of information that we cannot read. But it doesn't mean just because we cannot read them, they are not there. This universe is made up of data, made up of information. But this information, we cannot even see a small fraction of it because we don't have a tool to be able to read it. Okay, you see, magnet. Up until the time we discovered the tool to be able to measure magnet and know how it works, we didn't know that it was there. It might appear that the person who discovered magnet is the inventor. No, nobody invented magnet. It's just one of the rules of nature. You see, when we grow up more, we develop more tools, we'll be able to access more information. We'll be able to discover that all along around us, all these things will be here. Just that we didn't know. We didn't have the tools to be able to read them. So what do we say make perfect sense, Eny? It makes perfect sense. So that it comes back now to the power of imagination. No wonder Albert Einstein was saying that imagination is more important than knowledge. Because you could have a lot of knowledge now, but what if you don't have imagination to be able to imagine what it can be? Because what is knowledge again now? We are talking of the ability or maybe the know-how to do things. But all these things are just here. They are the tool. You talk about medicine. You see, medicine are certain element in the plant, because looking at it traditionally known, some of those medicine, if you drink them, it can heal you, but it can also kill you depending on how you do it. So that if you combine them well, if you combine certain element, they will catch fire. If you combine some, a mountain will dissolve. Which is to say, all these possibilities are just here, but we only operate based on what we know. So I think that is a powerful thing there. Now, the question I would like to ask you related to why storytelling work may be now about the emotion. How do we lace emotion more into the story? Because without the emotion, the story will not work. Otherwise, we better just be quoting statistics. But what do you recommend, Eny?
It's a hard one. It's a hard one because this again, as businesses, we'll spend our days trying to work out how do we make our listeners feel and then take action. How do we make them feel and then do our call to action, whether that's call us, buy, sign up, whatever, right? And I guess in truth, it's simple over here, but it's not simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. Right. And I tell all my customers these days, it's all right telling your story, but believe you me, if you don't know who you're talking to, almost nothing you say is going to move them at all, because they're having a different conversation in their head. They're trying to get through that first question in their head. Why am I listening to this person? Can they help me? Do I trust them? So you have to get through, and I think those. I was talking to someone last week, one of my friends last night. He's saying, right, he aims to sell, he aims to get 20 leads a month. He aims to sell 4, in 10. And if he does that, his company's made their money, and there's enough to pay him the commission that he wants. And see, but at the heart of the work is the relationship you have with who you're telling a story to. We live in a world where people are keen to say, "Oh, I don't have time. Just go to my website." Do you remember that years ago over here? When people used to say, "Here's my website. Just go to my website." And then they realize it doesn't work, right? Because most people will say, "Yeah, of course I'll go to your website," and then no one ever does, right? Luckily, social media has evolved enough these days to have what we have now: events where they can see us, they can hear us. They can spend more time with us, right? And if we're smart, we will turn those who are listening to us into connections and then into conversations. So when we do that, we almost turbocharge every story we tell, because the person listening to us has got past that. Who the hell is this person talking to me? Why should I trust them? If we can get past those questions in your listener's mind, then they are more amenable to really hear what you're saying. They're more amenable to actually say, right, do I have this problem? Can this person help me? Will I get what I want from doing business with this person? But all of that comes only when we take time to talk to people. Look, I've done my job. I've done marketing for the last 10 years. So I get a lot of people, they come with what to call it, assumptions. Maybe call it that, right? I want to sell 10,000. I want to sell thousands. I'm sure you do. How many have you sold so far? Right. So then you work out to sell 10,000. You still have to start at one. You start at one, get one person to believe you, to spend their money with you, to give you the chance, and then you must deliver whatever you say in your story, your promises. In other words, you must deliver for that one person, and that's what we're going to bring person number 2, number 3, number 4. There suddenly come a magic time, which again, it happens to all businesses that succeed, my friends. Where something you never ever thought of suddenly comes along and then suddenly takes your business from the I sell 1, I sell 2, I sell 3, I sell 4 to I sell 100 a day, to suddenly you sell thousands a day. So I don't think we should ever miss that first step over here of saying we need to talk to real people, we need to engage them, we need to actually, and the point about that storytelling at the beginning to engage people on that level is that it's not a one-way conversation. It's a conversation. It's a two-way conversation, right? It's about us caring about them as much as they want them to care about us. Now they have to feel that they can trust us, but we have to also show them the love that maybe now our love is more the fact that we know we can help them. In which case, then our task is simply to get across to them how and why we do what we do. And there may be possibly examples where they can see themselves getting the help that they want because we've helped similar people. That's all part of the conversation. So there's no magic pill. There's no point jazzing up our story over here for the sake of it. There's no point, what's the word? Going on flights of fancy, making up things that are not true. It doesn't help us. Doesn't help our listeners, our clients. It's about understanding people, and then I think then you'll almost sound like a doctor. And that's my way of saying I'll tell you the story that fits your condition. I'm not just going to tell you stories because that's like throwing pasta at a wall and hoping one sticks, right? It's much better to be much more intentional based on understanding your listener, really knowing who they are, what the problem is, what they've tried before, what they are suspicious of, what they are more amenable to, and then how you make them feel that they need to take action now. If you can get all those things right, your story is, it's like sugar. It's like sugar, in their tea, so to speak, right? It's just the accompaniment that makes them just love you more, and then decide, yeah, now's the time.
Thank you so much, Eddie. And I've got a question about consistency related to when you made mention of that initial move that happened to most businesses, where you probably are aiming at 1,000 or 2,000, but you need to understand that you're going to start from 1. Actually, you're going to be at a 0. You don't have any. When you open a YouTube channel or LinkedIn or any social media, you usually start at 0 because you don't start with 1. 1 is a plus. You start at 0, no 1. The day you get 1, you are happy. Then you get another 1, then another 1. Then you have 10, now 100, then hopefully 1,000. Then from there it grow and it grow. I would like you to speak more on that, so that people should be resilient, should be faithful to the core that they really want to do this. Now, before you say that, I also want to say something to add to what you were saying before. Yesterday, for example, I was saying that I was speaking in an event, that was organized by somebody. I was invited. There's some other persons who were also there. So one of the persons who was there listening to me talking later this morning actually sent me a message and said, "Okay, let's connect more. I've been listening to your story before." Then we started to talk. We started to chat. To end that short story, that long story short, just now before we started to talk, I've already sent a contract to the person. The person is now working with us. But if I weren't there, the person had been seeing me before. If I weren't there, we will probably not make the connection because I was there. So he made the connection, and today, just now, we are working. Today, I will be sending money to him. So you are right, what you were saying. But I want you to talk more on this consistency that when you start, you are going to start at zero. It is normal. Don't worry. That you say, come, people will not pay attention, but don't worry. Be consistent in what you want to do. Be ready to pass that stage because that stage will pass. Then gradually you will be moving on. And like Eny said, you will be having 1,000 in the years to come. About the consistency, what do you say about that, Eny?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of people, they want it today, Obi. They start business today. They want that 1,000 sales today. They think everything's just going to flow, brilliantly. In reality, everything is a journey. That's that. Let me start there. Everything's a journey, right? When I started my business over here, I told my wife, look, I'm doing digital marketing. This was 10 years ago, right? And people need online marketing. The small man that I want to serve. I'm like the plumber, the electrician, the gas man. And I said, those people, they know the internet's there. They need us to help them to make money on the internet. I told her, within 2 years, my darling, we'll be on the beach relaxing. The staff will be working from my glass-walled London Tower office, where we have the top floor. Yeah, if only. Obehi, 10 years later, my friend, I'm working harder than ever. I haven't been on holiday for years. And business is still, it's as hard today as it was then. But here's what's happened in the meantime, right? I've learned lessons. Again, I guess I've learned along the way from many wise people. I've had several coaches, and each one in their way moves me forward. And part of what I've learned is that you have to be to do. You have to be to be. I know what I just said, right? 10 years ago, I didn't even have a clue what I had to be to do, to run that company I just told you about, the one that's helping everyone, the one that has a glass walled office on top of a City of London building somewhere, right? But so every day is, but if we have to show up, Obi. Consistency is the word you use, right? We have to show up and do. And knowing that each time we do, we learn something. Each time we do, we find out more about ourselves. And I pray for everyone that each time you do, you feel more love for your customers. Because this is what brings it all together, right? It's all right doing what we're doing, but the customer, what does the customer care about over here? They care about themselves, rightly so. They care about them. They don't care about us, really. And all they want to know is, can you help me? Can I solve their problem? And I might say, it's only when I show them that I care about them that they will care about me. But you can't build up your expertise. You can't build up true knowledge, true skills by just talking about it. You have to actually do, right? You have to get on and do. And maybe document what you're doing, document your experiences, document your journey, because that's what's going to convince the customer at the end You know, and again, I may say in many parts of business, in many of the things that we do, that we sell, that we offer, we think our solution is the thing that we're selling. It's not. It's just not over here. What we're selling really is a thing that our solution gives people. I know, no, let me break it down in simple
Please.
terms. You see, many of us say to ourselves, "Oh, I don't like selling. I hate selling. I really hate selling. I don't want to be a salesperson. And I love my customers. I just want to do good and help people, right? Yeah, all that fair stuff. Okay, it's all good, you know. And then eventually I took on the training program with Eric F. King, right? He's got a sales coaching 6-week program. And it dawned on me from day one. The issue is not selling. The issue is not even selling my services. Well, the issue is confidence. We don't have the confidence to say what we do, to tell our stories, number one. And then we don't have the confidence to look a customer in the eye and say, you know what? I hear your stories, but I refuse to, and I almost to let you dictate how we're gonna work together if we do work together. And I find a mutual ground, right? If the customer says no, I don't want it. On a normal day over here, you and I will turn and we'll walk away. Sometimes we'll still do that, if the signals and the signs are right. But in truth, a good salesperson has a confidence to ask the right questions. It's a confidence that the salespeople really have. That's what they're selling in sales training. The product is not really the thing, right? Again, if you have the confidence to at least look at the customer and try and tease out what is it that will make you buy. What are your objections to what I'm offering you today? Is it a money issue? Is it a trust issue? Is it a timing issue? Which one is it, right? Most of us will not ask that question. Do you want this? No? Oh, okay, thanks, bye. Then we'll run off to the next person. I say, for most of us in business over here, our business is selling confidence. Self-confidence to do whatever you want to do. Your business, our business today, is selling the confidence to tell your stories in a way that resonates. And even in the face of objection, the face of people not listening, in the face of no one responding, that takes, it takes doing, and it takes a lot. People have to build their confidence in all areas of life. Again, let's talk about driving an instructor. What are they really selling? Are they trying to teach you how to drive a car? On one level, yes, but really what they're doing is teaching you how to have the confidence to be on the road amongst other cars, where you think everything is chaos and you're just going to either do yourself in or do someone else in, right? So if you look at it properly, you say that their driving instructor is teaching you how to stay calm, stay in your lane, and just do what you have to do, right, to get from A to B. But they think, they're selling. They'll argue to you that they're selling you driving skills. I'm saying almost in every business, once you turn up consistently over here, then you begin to really understand this is what the customer struggles with. This is what they really need help with, right? Again, I'll start talking. Let me use my business as another example. Yes, I publish books. Can people publish books themselves? Of course they can. So yes, on the one hand, there are people petrified by what if it goes wrong? Worse still, it's gone wrong before. I couldn't solve it. Then they're like, Eny, help me. That's what they're calling me for, really, right? And so
part of my role is to help them through that confidence barrier by saying, I'll do it for you. Maybe I'll do it with you. And then so once we publish the book, then it's a case of, I know in truth that you want to sell more books. And that's where most people fail, right? But this comes from doing what I've done for the last 10 years, where you learn your customers, you learn your listeners, and you really learn what they struggle with. And then you begin to tack on solutions for those problems. And that journey can take years over here. You can say, it's taking me this long to get this far. Am I where I want to be yet? No. But let me tell you, I'm certainly a long way from where I was. I'm a long way from just doing social media posts.
That is progress.
And that's business, right? That's business. If you're progressing, and I know that magically, it will look like magic, but it's not magic. I think it's us storytellers, us service providers growing every day with our clients, right? We grow, we learn more, we become more, we can do more. And then with all of that, we can serve more. Meanwhile, as we go, we tell better stories, more engaging stories, more stories that align with our customers' needs, with our listeners' needs. And then suddenly we see this rainbow at the end of our long years of hard work. And some would say, oh, look at that overnight success, that Obehi guy. They missed the last 20 years over here. They missed the last 25 years when God knows you worked hard. You started from that one. And that became, they miss these days. And they think,
lucky.
He was lucky. That's the word, lucky. That overnight success. Everything he touches just gets good. It never happens to me. It's a weird way that humans are. But consistency is the key. We have to show up every day and give our best. Again, what story can you tell if you come to the table with half-heartedness? What do you learn if you come half-heartedly? Nothing. You learn nothing, and you take nothing away apart from nothing, right? I think we have to give 100% every day, every time, every chance we get. That's only we're going to learn something. Because now, if it worked and you're like, oh, okay, I did this, that's why it worked. If it doesn't work, you're like, okay, I did that, that's why, and that didn't work. If we come with 50% of ourselves any day, then we'll learn nothing whatsoever.
Thank you, Eny. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. Of course, that is why we are here. For how long have we been here together, Eny? It's been a long time.
We're like twins over here. We're like twins now, right? No, it's a joy. It's a joy. It's a joy.
Absolutely.
Again, maybe that's another part of the consistency journey over here. You find friends, partners, collaborations that it never crossed your mind, and a lot of these things would take a long time to build into something.
Yeah.
For a long time, some friends, you think nothing's happening, and then suddenly an idea comes along that you're like, yeah, let's do it, right? And suddenly things change.
There was something that happened within our house here. The antenna that was distributing television signal was not working. So one of our colleagues said he knew somebody, so he called the technician to come and fix it. The person spent, I think, 15 minutes or 30 minutes thereabout, and they paid him €300. And then one of the guys was complaining, said, but no, that is almost stealing. €300 for that short time that is spent, that is too much. Now, when I come to reflect on that, I say, you are not really paid the 30 minutes. You are paid for the years, tens of years that this guy have been putting together to know this craft. So, in essence, people are not really paid us for what we do. They are paying us for knowing how to do it well. You see, I've come to understand this. in our content writing, we write for both PhD holder, people who are way far ahead of me in academic. I didn't go to any university. I have come to understand that article writing is not about academic qualification. Of course, you need to know how to write. You need to know how to read and write, and of course, how to organize it. It's a complete science of its own. It takes me a far way shorter time to write an article now than it took me years ago. Years ago, I will wait there writing. In fact, I wouldn't know how to do it, but I will continue. I never stop because I love to do this. So when people pay me today to write article for them and I charge them, it's not the number of words. Okay, we have the number of words that is written there that is going to be about this so and so amount of words and that. That is not what they are really paying for. They are paying for my ability to do it well. And this know how to do it well, it takes a lot of years to learn. Like you're saying, Eny, we know when it's not working because it have happened to you a number of times. You don't read this in the book. I studied with London School of Journalism online, of course. I had a chance to be able to learn, but that is not really where I got the information. Where I got the information is in practice. In practice. Because in practice, you will learn, even though you are not very smart, because you do it again and again and again and again. You don't need to be smart. You just need to be, Les Brown said, I was not intelligent enough to understand that I couldn't fail. Therefore, success was my only option. I will do it again. Okay, I'm stupid enough to accept failure. Therefore, my success is my only answer. If I don't succeed today, it means I need to keep on pushing. If I were intelligent, I would stop. But my success is my only answer. So I will keep on grinding. And if you look at it now, you take up a piece of diamond or gold. You see, I use this quite often. It's like every other dust. What transforms the diamond or the gold to be shiny is the fire you put it to. You burn it and burning and burning and burning until all the shafts are gone. What remains is just pure amazement, beauty. So we must be prepared for that too, through the process of refining our skill. It is not how much money we make that really we should be aiming at. What do we become in the process? And you said something very beautiful there. You need to be to be. Maybe when I have a lot of money, I will come to say this. It is not about the money. It's about what we become. Money will come. But if you are not prepared for the money, if you haven't be to be, you will lose it all. And you won't even know where you are supposed to plug it. So I think it is important, what the point of refining ourselves, learning, and be consistent, because the result will come. There is no way will not come. Eny, how do you conclude this conversation? It really will be very inspiring.
Nice. I totally agree. The money is, the money is not the primary thought, right? And again, I have this conversation with people every day. I think I agree with you entirely, Obehi. The risk is that if you are not prepared, if all you want is the money and how to put it, God help you if the money comes like that. People would see this every day, Obehi. Lottery wins, right? That's the fastest money anyone's going to get when they get millions, gazillions, in one go. They have to buy one ticket, right? And almost all of them will lose all the money because they haven't prepared. They haven't become that person who can manage that sort of money, that sort of success. So I think we need to carry on developing ourselves. We need to carry on becoming the person who does what we say we do at the level we say we do it at. That. So when we become that person, it's much easier. Because we're more prepared for the money that comes. Again, a lot of people will argue with me over here. I don't want money. I'm saying, you do want money. You do. Because almost like the same way we say what you see in your mind is what becomes. So your vision for your business, your vision for your solution, your vision for the customers you help. If you can visualize those, the chances are they will come true if you do the work, right? If on the other hand you choose to visualize no customers, no success, no transformations, no money, no value that you give, don't be surprised if nothing happens. Because what you saw in your mind is what's going to happen. We have to learn to place money for what it is. Money is currency. That's what it is. Money is currency, right? Money is how we buy stuff. We exchange it for what we want, ideally, half the time, right? And so I take the view that I want to earn the money that is due based on the value I give. When a man doesn't pay me over here, I get annoyed because I feel that my work hasn't been appreciated. So when a man pays me, I take it as vindication that I gave a solution. I gave something of value to them. And that's what they're saying thank you for. It's not that the dollar or the pound is everything. It's just that it is the currency in which people show appreciation. People show the value that you have. Of course, at the same time, if no one's paying you, how are you going to pay yourself? How are you going to pay your staff? How are you going to pay your suppliers? Now, let's not get stuck on the money conversation. If you do good, almost in every case, the money will come. But it starts with doing good. It starts with it starts with having that true love for your client. I think storytelling and a business as a whole it's about loving your client. So about loving the person you're talking to, the people that you exist to help, right? And then speak the language. Speak to them in the language that they understand and how they see not how we see, not how we want to do anything.
And it's something is happening there with all those telephone call coming
Don't
in.
worry. They try over here. They try.
But anyway, you are a man of business. We must let you go.
No. So I think the thing I'll leave our listeners with today over here, which I mean I've saying it for a long while. Love your customers, love what you do, love your solution. Love everything about what will help the people that you exist to help. Once we do that, it's amazing how we suddenly find those gems of real solutions, those gems of what people really need, right? Now, those miracles, so to speak. And that's it. But those miracles is what others don't find. Which is what happens when you are consistent, when you're a doer, when you're a believer, when you truly love those that you work for, those that you work with. Look, to serve a customer, I'm sure you can work out what they need, but the one who can go beyond and above beyond everyone is the one that ultimately will corner the market. The one who was willing to say, right, I know this is the real answer. Others know this too, but they're not willing to do it. I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to do what others are not willing to do. And I will communicate to the people that I help this point of difference between me and the others. That's when you become an authority in your field, in your niche. That's when you become the person people go to because they trust you, and they can, and of course, your results will speak for themselves. Never forget to use your results. I say in the world I live in today, I can tell you what I do all day long, but it's much easier, much better when my clients tell people what I do for them, right? And it's even more lovely, the loveliest thing, the greatest feeling in the world over here, which is the last I'm going to say today, I think, right? Imagine what happens when your friends, your customers are telling their friends, their network, your stories, how you help them. That is a true story of business.
Thank you so much, Eny. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. Your value here, they are incredibly beautiful. So people now understand why storytelling works and moves people, because you sow a seed and that seed is going to germinate. You make a bargain with nature that I am going to sow this seed. Nature doesn't fail. You will make sure it germinates. So storytelling work, but what story are we telling? What sort of storytelling are you involving in your business? And then he's saying you need to love your customers. Guess what? They're the one paying your bills. They are the one you are serving. You came to the marketplace and say, I am going to serve you with the solution that I brought. I believe that is why you are called an entrepreneur. Because if you are not providing solution, then you better stay at home. And then he's saying, if you serve them well, they will tell your story and they will share your story to their friends. Their friend will also tell your story. What a beautiful world that will be. What a beautiful world that will be. So we thank you for accompanying us to the end of this conversation. It has really been fun for me here and for Eny. Eny, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure here, brother. Thank you very much.
It's a joy. And I would say we haven't done this in a long time. You and I just doing a podcast together, so I'm overjoyed, my friend. Thank you for the opportunity. And so do connect with connect if if I can help you, or just I like connecting just to know who you are and what you do. So don't be shy, right? Find me on LinkedIn, my friends.
That's what Eny said. Find Eny. He is ready to be able to serve you because he serve you with value so that you can tell the story. That is a bargain that I will serve you well so that you can be a referrer for me. You see, those are good business people, because if you are just looking for money, I don't care whether I really serve you above and beyond. I just serve you according to what you said, but I will not be able to ask you now, go and tell my story because you paid me, that's all. But if I serve you above and beyond, I wouldn't even go to be telling you, hey, go and start sharing my story. It becomes natural that you do that. That is a good thing. That is a good story. And that is why storytelling works. That is why people are attracted to it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Check out Obehi's storytelling books as well. I was reading mine the other day. In the yellow and black cover. And I was reading mine the other day. But then the 5-part storytelling, books, 5-part book series Obehi has on business storytelling. It's the knowledge we need over here is there, right? It's people just need to, reach out and I suppose and apply what they read, right? Your books, your courses. Why reinvent the wheel when you can learn from those who've been there already?
Thank you so much, Eny. You are a pleasure. You are a treasure.